Hey guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? Please hit that like, please subscribe, and if you get anything from my work, share it. Because it's caring, it's spreading knowledge, and really interesting topics. And if you get anything from my work, I connected that, a mind-blown moment, an epiphany, a mushroom cloud moment, a new author to explore, a new book to read, please consider supporting my work. All the links are at the bottom of the video. Before I begin, I'm trying a new eyeshadow and it's way too black. Like, I like my gothic thing very much so, but goodness, it's popping out on the video. So it looks prettier in person for me. I only have to make my own self happy. And then I could do this here because see that little puppy dog? I'm doing that little puppy dog. So all that artwork you see that I post, that's all mine. The Hermit's Journey I did in college. The one with the AI, quantum, and metaphysics ponderings, that one's hanging right here. I revamped it when I moved in because it was from college in a project I hated, and I repurposed my canvases. So, and the alien drawing, it's all me doing a puppy portrait. And I'm doing a special someone's relative birthday present. So I'm busy drawing. But puppy paws are like human hands when you draw them. It's ridiculously hard to get certain angles, and because I had to blow that up, and it's, oh my goodness. And I mapped that out, you know, you scale it and you map everything out. Oh no, I'm bad with that. So I brought it down so I can look at my light box and see if I can get some angles on. Anywho, why are we here? Another one of our beautiful Curtis books that we love so much. I love so much. I can't with them because I love them so much. We're going to do chapter 5 and 6 today, and chapter 5 happens to be old clothes. So this should be really interesting. Buckle up. This book has been exponential so far. So it reads a little different from a book. So I think those of you who were watching the other, you kind of got that. It's a little different. Effect of clothes. While in all but tropical countries, clothes are worn primarily for protection and comfort, they have a far greater significance and influence. While it may not be entirely true that clothes make the man, they nevertheless have an important psychological and even spiritual influence. They reveal not only taste, but individuality and character. A man cannot feel quite the same in overalls and sweater as he does in a new business suit or a tuxedo or tails. Nor can a woman feel the same in a kitchen apron or slacks as she does in a tea or ball gown. Clothes reveal. Clothes are more than an index of taste and preference. They reveal much as to the stage of the soul's unfoldment. Clothes that are worn to startle and attract attention to the personality are evidently expressions of vanity and self-aggrandizement, and reveal a young and undeveloped soul. Over youthful styles for the middle age call attention to the lack of youth and indicate a fear of old age. I see it, and I grasp this, but I don't necessarily respond and resonate with it. Because in reality, you do you. And yes, as a woman does it like put, because this book was written really in the 1930s, 40s, you have to take their mind frame and like now shift it into modernization. Women want to look a lot younger, but there's a difference between wearing a dress you would wear to a club and wearing a dress to in your 40s, 50s, going to a club. You're not showing your assets like you were in your 20s. You're not, I would not go clubbing in now. Like I used to go clubbing a lot in the gothic industrial scene. I would be covering myself up a little bit more and not wearing the most loud and doing my makeup like crazy stuff. I just tone it down because I am mature and I'm much older. But that's not here or there, because it's also it could be psychological, but I believe I'm one of the big tests for people. So I'm just going to do me and be happy about it. So, but I mean, and a lot of you probably feel the same way. We're like, what? I just do me. And that's all you should be doing. But note that this time frame that they're writing this in, etiquette, going to etiquette school, learning where the cutlery goes on the table and how to sit like a lady and how to curtsy was all in the rage right in that time frame. So please be mindful of this. As most of the other books that I read, it's funny. How to dress. While we should all dress as becomingly and charmingly as is appropriate for the occasion, nevertheless, middle age should show a decided improvement in taste and refinement over the thoughtless impulsiveness and frank desire of youth for admiration, while all should dress and look as youthful, healthy, and vital as their age and good taste permit. Nevertheless, maturity has a dignity, graciousness, and charm that is not natural to youth. Unless you're an old soul and has incarnated a million times and you're here and you're just like, I have to be in this vehicle for a reason. Clothes appeal. Clothes should appeal to beauty, idealism, and modesty and contribute to true happiness. While shorts and suntan suits. Sorry, guys, I find this really funny. Suits for their place in sports and bathing. They detract from our esteem and respect for the wearer if worn elsewhere. Flashy, pert styles tend to make flashy, pert girls, and especially vulgar. I find this hysterical. Why is this in this book? I don't know. Tasteful dress. Quite tasteful gowns may be beautiful also and enhance the beauty of the wearer. They reflect the dignity and poise that come from an inner peace and spiritual unfoldment. They arouse thoughts of the ideal mother, home, and family, while flashy clothes arouse thoughts of a nightclub hostess and all the frivolity, vanity, and human weakness with which she presents. Anywho, psychological effect. According to the laws of emanation and radiation, clothes take on the psychological, magnetic, and mental conditions of the wearer and the conditions under which they are worn. Because of their psychological effect, one can often dispel or discourage feeling or a depressed mood by changing to a cheerful costume. one of bright and harmonious colors, especially one that has happy associations. On the other hand, clothes that strongly remind you of unhappy emotional conditions should be discarded as soon as possible, for they tend to revive those unhappy vibrations. Ceasing using. Old clothes that have outlived their dignity or their more commonplace usefulness should not be kept and put away in the attic, the closet, or the basement, but should be passed on to some needy person or welfare society where they can still give useful service to persons who are not sensitive to their vibrations. Especially, you should not keep trunks or closets full of such old clothes and pour over them. For every time they are taken out and meditated upon, they take your mind back to the time when they were worn, and this tune you into those old conditions, ideas, and emotions. Thus, they tie you down to those old associations and make you relive them. Those conditions are past and gone, and you should have grown out of and beyond them and above them. So why burden yourself with their unhappy and debilitating influences all over again? So I'll give a quick example. So when my father and my father died, but my mother really had a hard time cleaning his stuff out. And I didn't know that she snuck when she was able to the attic to put his things away. So when my mother died, I had the cheerful experience of having to go as I'm moving up to the attic, and whoa, what did I find? So I took my mother's gowns, my father's suits, dress clothes, and clothes that you could repurpose, and I donated them to the Vietnam Vets Association. So hopefully somebody could use them and get life out of them again. So I did the same thing when I moved. I looked at all the clothes that I personally have, jackets and stuff, and I donated them to clothesbins, shelters, and again, the organizations that take clothes. Always try to be helping others in need, especially if you wore them once or twice and just it's going to sit in your closet for years. Why? When someone else can utilize it. So if you're in this problem right now, spring is over, but clean your closets, especially if clothes make you feel changing clothes. There is much to be gained by a change of clothes after a day's work. If you wear your office or work clothes at home, you bring back much of the strain, worry, and fatigue of the day's work. Hence, it is difficult to take your mind off the day's worry and let it rest. It is also well to change and even take a hot bath after especially disagreeable or inharmonious event or experience, that you may free yourself entirely from those vibrations and the more easily express the vibrations of peace, harmony, and love of your own I am presence or real self, which is waiting to radiate from within. And I agree with that. Discard old thoughts. Old thoughts, ideas, habits, and emotions are the old clothes of the mind. Once they are outgrown, why hark back to them? That was good and constructive in them has been built into your character as new equipment with which you enter each day or cycle of your life. Therefore, deliberately discard and refuse to relive and react to all the sorrows, fears, mistakes, and regrets that have made your life hard, unhappy, and unlovely in the past, and refuse to burden yourself with them. No mental attic. Have no mental attic filled with such ill assorted and outgrown rubbish. Instead, carefully select out of your lives, out of your hearts, out of your storehouse, of your thoughts and feelings, beliefs and loves, only those that are constructive and conducive to your happiness and progress. For whatever you select, you are burden yourself with in your new cycle of ongoing. Prepare for new experiences. If you would be free to have new experiences, to have new ideas, learn new truths, and take new steps upon the path of attainment, do just as you would if you were going on a long and important journey. Go into your inner closet and the closet of your mind and heart and carefully view what you find and choose only that which you should treasure. Do not try to dig up old and forgotten episodes from the dark corners of your memory. Look only for the bright and shining garments of joy and happiness, the bright jewels of faith, unselfishness, and love. Decide which it is wise to carry with you, which it is wise to leave behind and forget entirely. Select your vehicle. If you're going on a long voyage, your first care would be to select the ship most suited to your needs. Just so carefully should you select the spiritual ship or movement or teaching that is to carry you onward toward the mystical east, where the sun of the righteousness shall rise for you. It would naturally not be a new and flashy speedy boat. Most gaudy paint merely conceals its flimsy structure, and whose claims for great speed to the kingdom of God and the Christ consciousness, or shortcuts to mastery and the ascension, serve only to disguise probable disaster. For the high seas of life are too tremendous for speedboats. And that's true. Steady growth. Speedboats are not needed on the spiritual voyage, for there is no time in eternity, and all eternity is before us. Also, all solid attainment is a matter of speedy growth. And a change to the figure. We do not want our spiritual growth to be of the hothouse type that fades when brought into the outer world or is destroyed by the first blast of a storm. Results of speed. All those who try to rush through life take many false turnings, which have to be retraced, often in sorrow and suffering. Even in the great ocean liners which rush through the seas at high speed, the vibration of the engines and the shock of the waves are so great as to be most uncomfortable, if not distressing and dangerous. What is needed is a modern ship, but one whose seagoing qualities and safety have been tried and tested through the years. One which your friends have traveled for years and can recommend. One on whose structure teachings you can depend to carry you through the tides and storms of life. One whose captain knows and can avoid the shallows, the tortuous channels, and the dangerous reefs, which wreck so many haphazard voyagers. Friendships. Once having selected your ship, you should realize that your fellow passengers are to be close companions with whom you will set up ship acquaintances, which many ripen into true and lasting friendships. And it is comforting to know that on this journey that is taking you to the distant realms of glory, your companions are selected souls, brother and sister aspirants for divine realization. They are in the ship of these teachings, not for any haphazard reason, but because no matter what their outer personalities may be, each is here because he is seeking the same destination, the same great end. And he is here because he has paid the price. He has obtained his ticket by the travel of his soul and has paid for it by the blood of his heart shed through his various life experiences. And his ticket has been accepted and stamped by the hand of your master of the ship. Therefore, all are worthy of your understanding and fellowship. Your soul tribe. And many of us have not yet filled our ships yet. Many of us are still waiting for some to find us. Those of us who understand all the intricacies of what we were spread around the world. We are the beacons of light. We are attracting. We sometimes have to move our locations and selves to where our energy needs anchoring. And then more people are going to come around, and some will stay and some will go. I equate the soul tribe as a tree. You have your roots, you make up the trunk, and then you have your branches, and then you have your leaves, and people stay for a cycle or season. Sometimes a branch breaks off. The roots will always be there, and you are also a part of the roots, but you are on the outside manifested on this tree trunk. And that makes up the people around you, make that tree trunk sturdy. Whereas the branches and the leaves are people that just stay for a little bit, or they help you on a mission, or they're in and out of your lives each season, the leaves, and then they go bye-bye. That's just my take on that. But our ships are not filled yet. At least mine is not. But I'm happy for those who are in my tribe. Correlation. Now, if you were taking a ship for the Far East with a goodly company, and expected to spend weeks and probably months together in close intimacy and under all kinds of trying conditions, what would be the first requisites? Since you recognize that your own happiness on the voyage, as well as that of your companions, would depend largely upon your ability to correlate harmoniously and in friendly and appreciative way with your fellow voyagers, the first thing you should make up in your mind to do is to carry with you and radiate friendliness, cheerfulness, unselfishness, and love. Since worldly wisdom suggests such a necessity for success of your physical voyage, how much more important is it for the success of your spiritual voyage? And how is this to be accomplished? Drop the old. Firstly, by leaving behind you the great bundle of old clothes, belongings to your former life, the old inharmonies, fears, suspicion, resentments, and selfishness that have been such a burden to you and what have held you back for so long. Or are you going to try to carry with you still the flashy garment of pride of personality, which demands that you should be recognized at your own estimation of yourself as someone of importance, instead of being willing to be judged by that which you radiate or manifest? Don't pity yourself. Are you going to be hurt and pity yourself and think all are against you if you are not recognized as you wish? Is that an expression of love or of selfishness and vanity? Self-importance and self-pity are some of the old garments that many are aspirants still clinging to or hugs to himself. But it must be left behind, for it reacts even upon the body as kidney irritation and finally disease, just as resentment and anger react upon the liver, making one bileless. It's true. At least my perspective, that is. Animal emotions. Until they are completely conquered, those demons of the animal self, envy and jealousy, are ever present, causing misunderstandings, destroying friendships, and often making even otherwise advanced students criticize and undermine one another. Beware, therefore, lest they subtly poison your garments with their venom, and having spread their blighting influence, leave you in sorrow and remorse. Examine yourself. Therefore, stop a moment and examine yourself. Can you and do you rejoice in the happiness that can bring to others? Can you and do you rejoice in the happiness your friends receive from other sources than yourself? Are you really glad when others do for your friends what you can yourself cannot do? If you cannot quite honestly say yes to this self-examination, pray earnestly that the cleansing power of the Christ love shall remove all these corroding stains of selfishness and vanity and wash your garments whiter than snow. Self-righteousness. If you are not troubled with envy or jealousy, beware lest you wrap yourself around with the threadbare cloak of self-righteousness, which makes you think that because you have not these particular failings, and that because you are on board this ship and are one of its company, you are therefore more advanced and hence more spiritual than your fellow travelers. Do you not know that the old garment is so threadbare that your companions can easily see through it how superficial and trifling your so-called advancement is? Do you think you can take these sources of inharmony and unhappiness with you without reaping the inevitable results? Accepting you. Perhaps you think such characteristics are the real you, and the world must accept you as you are or will have none of it. Do you think that the attention of the company will be so focused upon you that their quiet harmony will be disrupted and their peace upset, or that you can turn aside those earnest souls who are so valiantly striving to progress and use all they have for the good of all? Indeed not. Such forces may cause inharmony and unhappiness, but it is you who will be broken, not the others. Peaks. The peaks, the slights, the hurts, the jealousies, which you imagine another is sending you, you yourself are molding into a weapon which will someday enter and wound your own heart. Only sorrow and suffering can come to you as long as you wear such a garment. Only when you throw it off and join your comrades hand in hand as they march along, singing the songs they catch from the angelic hosts, can you be one with them and partake of their happiness and demonstrate the greatness of your soul unfoldment. The great soul. The great soul is one who has such a realization of the divine indweller, the Christ within, that he cannot be offended or hurt by lack of outer recognition or by sights to his personality. The great soul is he who, like the Master Jesus, may be mocked, despitefully used, and even scourged, yet is so filled with the glory of the Christ Spirit that he seeks not the outer slights, feels them not, represents them not. He is charged so positively with the Christ power and is so busy radiating his cheer, comfort, and helpfulness to others that he forgets to be selfish or inharmonious. And even there is a personality to be offended. So true. Your greatness. You are all relatively great souls in the process of greater or less manifestation through the garment of flesh, even if you have not manifested that greatness to any exceptional degree as yet. That greatness may still be too covered up with the old clothes of your earlier life before you set out deliberately on this great voyage to the promised land. Therefore, look deep into the treasure chest of your life and heart and throw out the moth-eaten clothes of purely earthly desires, thoughts, and habits, and take with you only those immortal shining garments of love and compassion, of sympathy and unselfishness, which are the livery of the Christ. For you cannot wear the old garments in the new life and be recognized as a follower of the Christ. They are not being worn by your companions on the voyage, neither can you march side by side with your friends down the promenade of life for all to know and view while your clothes are covered with the grease spots of unpurified personality. I'm going to put a pause here. One of the other videos I did, I was talking about how we're at this crux point in moving forward, and you have to come to neutrality, and you have to let everything in your old paradigm go in order to begin the new. Our new, it's not a new soul, but our higher density soul is waiting for us to let it go. As also would say, let it go. So that we can move forward with a new perspective, new beginning, but in the Christed way, the middle pathway, the God way. Moth-eaten garments. Hence, if you find old moth-eaten garments of worldly ideas or self-indulgence, self-seeking, self-pleasuring at the expense of principle and righteousness, gather up all such old clothes and expose them to the sun of righteousness, that their hidden moths may be revealed and destroyed, and you stand forth clad only in the pure white livery of the Christ. For if you had not such shining garments in your inner spiritual wardrobe, you would not be attracted to this great company or be on this voyage in the ship of this cosmic teaching and have comradeship of its followers. Spiritual garments. Instead of clinging to the old clothes, which are so bedraggled by the mirror of earth, select the garments of the spirit, such as absolute truth, honesty, consideration of others, compassion, and tenderness, and determine to bring them forth, don them, and wear them everywhere in the light of day for the delight, help, and encouragement of all. Perhaps you have not realized that you have been weaving such garments silently through the years. Every heart longing for the right, every aspiration, every effort to conquer a fault, every kind word, every unselfish deed has woven a strand into this fabric. Your garment. No two garments are alike. No two are exactly the same cut, nor of the same shade or luster of shining. But since they are all woven of strands of harmony, they all blend harmoniously. For they are all worn by the Spirit, seeking harmonious expression through the personality. Therefore, let the garment in which you appear before the world be an expression of the real self, of you which dwells within, and not the ragged garment of the animal self, patched with the faults of failings of the personality. Armor of God. Or as the Bible tells us, quote, wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand, stand therefore having your loins girt about the truth, and having the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace, and above all, taking the shield of faith, within ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of spirit, which is the word of God. Unquote. Immortal garments. Thus shall you don the immortal garments of purity and truth, and stand before the world as a fearless and valiant soldier of the Christ. For the old clothes of the world brave have been put off forever, and you are now clad in the livery of heaven. That was interesting, to say the least, and pretty awesome, because a lot of that is so true. We're moving forward, and we have to leave what doesn't serve us behind. And it's a hard thing to do, because a lot of people need to go in and do a lot of self-healing. I started back up in my oracle readings, and I posted one 2 days ago, and that's the Lionsgate, and everything, the cards, and this is spirit talking, everything that they said, everything was about self-healing. going within and clearing the clutter of your own issues, your trauma, your childhood stuff, all of it, and refresh yourself and go into healing, acknowledging things, but being empowered that you can do it and that there are things that will come into fruition for you. Go check that reading out. It's not tarot, it's oracle. And those of you who know, who have watched the oracle readings before, they're very helpful. It steers you and gives you some guidance. And I'm pulling them at different decks, different cards, and I have upstairs helping. So check it out. It's to help you. It's helped me. I have a whole cart full of cards. It's helped me. So try that, guys. The next chapter, ideals. Chapter 6, ideals. Ideals rule. Ideals rule the world for good or ill, according to their origin and character. Their origin may be divine or human, either God-made or man-made. If high and pure and constructive, they express in peace, harmony, beauty, and happiness. If low and impure and destructive, they express in inharmony, lack of symmetry, unhappiness, and suffering. Inner pattern. On every hand, we see the inner molding, directing, and manifesting through the outer. In nature, the pattern of each genus, family, and species of plant and animal projected from the divine mind and manifested by the hierarchies of builders to express a certain ideal determines the outer form and function. In fact, the planet itself, the solar system, and all the galaxies of universes revealed by both the microscopic and telescope are but more or less imperfect materializations of ideals in the mind of God. Plan and purpose. Form, the vast and cosmic down to the finite and infinitesimal. We see the plan, purpose, and design of a superhuman consciousness, which plans in infinite detail the grouping of the electrons in the atoms according to the same law of coordination and harmony that groups the stars in the universe. Everywhere we see forms evolving into more nearly perfect expressions of their ideals by discarding the less efficient and less useful forms to make way for every more nearly perfect expressions of the ideals which bring them into manifestation. Subject to the limitations of the density of the substances of which they are composed and the effect of the environment in which they are precipitated. God consciousness. This inner pattern or ideal, which is back of all forms of manifestation, is the vehicle of the outbreathing of the divine one life. And the forms which it animates are symbolic expressions of the God consciousness, which underlies, enfolds, and sustains all things, because it is the soul or ideal of the universe. It is the eternal verities of the God consciousness, which finds expression in the fundamental ideals of spiritual truth, whose expression is basically the same in all forms of religion and philosophy. Thoughts expressed. In humanity, our ideals mold our thoughts, and the thoughts that are repeatedly entertained or which strongly occupy our minds find expression in our words and acts according to the first law of spiritual psychology. Every thought which we think positively will find expression through us in terms of action, unless counteracted by an opposite thought of greater power. Man, like other forms in nature, have back of and within him his inner pattern or ideal, the divine higher self, or the ideal or real man. It is this divine self that is ever seeking unfoldment and expression through the limitations of the human personality, as the oak seeks expression through the acorn and the chicken through the egg. Free will. But man has the God-given gift of free will. Hence, he can respond to and follow the ideals of the divine self, or he can follow the ideals of his own human and limited creation. But unless his self-created ideas are in harmony with the eternal verities of spiritual truth in the spiritual or ideal world, they will clash with those higher ideals, or they find expression in what are called the laws of nature. Laws of nature. Those so-called laws of nature are but harmonious and constructive outpicturings of the fundamental law of manifestation, namely, from above downward, from within outward, and from center to circumference. Therefore, man never breaks a law of nature, for the law is immutable. If man violates it and refuses to work in harmony with it, he reaps a destructive result. Instead of his breaking the law, it is the unchangeable law which breaks him, or he breaks himself against the law. Transition. Those who really think for themselves are not swept along on the tides of circumstance and popular fancy. Those who give thoughtful and serious attention to the events which are transpiring around them realize that they are passing through a period of rapid change of ideals in both their personal and national life, changes which affect all classes and conditions of people, as well as the earth itself. For man cannot separate change and evolution from the earth, since his body is of the earth, earthly, even though his soul is divine. Change necessary. Old ideas of government, old ideals as to political, economical, industrial, social, and religious forms and relations are rapidly changing, and new ideals and objectives are being established in their place. Now change is essential to progress. That which is set in its form of expression gets into a rut, gets crystallized, and cannot adapt itself to changing conditions. It really ceases to live dynamically and only vegetates until it decays. Hence, it is soon outgrown or passes away. Change, therefore, is necessary to readjust the outer to the expansion of the inner pulsating life of nature of man, of general conditions, and of the planet itself, all of which are ever seeking new and higher forms of expression as seen in the annual miracle of spring. Divine ideals. But until man learns to find his new ideals upon the divine ideals of the inner man and the inner life, humanity will have to pass through a transitional period of chaotic conditions and consequent suffering while adjusting itself to the new man-made ideas until it finds out that glittering pancreas presented by untutored and spiritual undeveloped minds for the solving of surface problems, which are only the effects of inner, deep-lying causes, must fail. For only ideas founded upon the eternal verities can endure, bring about a constructive adjustment of conditions and harmonious, joyful results. How important then these are the eternal verities be repeatedly and insistently presented to mankind in these days of confusion and man-made speculations, theories, and makeshifts. As if they wrote it for the time of now. Goodness sakes. Mental instruction. Sorry, guys. Again, I'm having issues. Mental instruments. Thought, intelligence, and reason are instruments of mighty power and importance, without which mankind cannot accomplish its mission in the world, nor learn its lessons. But unless thought, intelligence, and reason are guided and checked and controlled by high ideals instead of being determined by passing popular fancies, the desires of the flesh and the selfishness an aggrandizement of the personality, they are sure to be evaluated to supreme importance, influence, and control of the life, instead of being made subservient and willing and efficient instruments of the ideals of the higher consciousness, the superconscious mind of the soul or real man, and subject to divine guidance. Guidance needed. We are all human beings indeed, but what kind of human beings are we depends upon the character of the ideals we hold and express. For this reason, it is highly important that each student seek the guidance in selecting the ideals upon which he is to base his life, thought, and action as found in the various avenues of teaching presented to him as truth. Ideas versus ideals. Ideas may seem to rule in the intellectual world for a time, but unless they contain something more than mere intellectual force, something of the ideal, they sooner or later pass away. They may have been good ideas, but were not ideals. They must be vitalized by a spiritual force of shorter wavelength and hence greater broadcasting power than that of mind. The idea of making the world safe for democracy and the subsequent setting of several self-governing peoples was a good idea, and it swept Europe. The idea was grasped and accepted, but it was not made into an ideal for and by incorporating it into the basic principles of brotherhood and cooperation. Hence, it was followed by an equally widespread wave of dictators and dictatorships. The idea of freedom and political equity of women was long held by many, but only when it was vitalized by the spiritual ideals of Susan B. Anthony and her fellow pioneer workers did it become sufficiently radioactive to spread upon it and gain sufficient power to amend the Constitution of the United States. Hear it again! Talking about now. Illumination. For the earnest seeker of spiritual truth, it is not enough then merely to have good ideas, important as those are. They must be illumined and expanded by an inner realization of the spiritual principles back of them, so that they can express from ideas to ideals. In fact, the greatest duty of the outer man is to know the ideal of the inner man and to make it active in expression in his life. Secret ideals, select ideals. We should have clearly thought out and firmly established ideals for all phases of our life. We should have ideals for the body, its perfection, health, and happiness. This includes right ideas about food and proper food combinations, proper exercise, proper elimination of organic waste, toxins, and acids. Since bodily states and conditions react upon the mind and influence and color its mental states and reactions, it is important to establish ideals of perfection for the body and its functions. Always visualize the perfect ideal functioning of all its organs and parts. Ideals of mind. We must also establish ideals for the mind, realizing that nothing can affect us which we do not emit into our own consciousness. We could set as our mental ideal the perfect mastery and control of our mind, and it is thought forces. We must remember that all thoughts that come into our consciousness are not created by us. Many of them are created by other persons. These combine with like thoughts of others to form great currents of thought, some high, pure, and inspiring, some low, selfish, impure, and lustful, which sweep over the minds of men either like gentle perfume breezes from heaven or like cold, clammy fogs, vicious tornadoes of temptation, or stifling dust storms of self-indulgence, which blind our eyes to the truth and even shut out the radiance of the sun of righteousness. Power of thought. Hence, we must clearly discriminate which type of thoughts we will admit into our consciousness and entertain there. Oh, that's huge. For the second great law of spiritual psychology tells us every thought we accept and entertain, we feed by our thought currents and attention, and thus give it power over us. If it is not in harmony with the ideals of love, tolerance, purity, brotherhood, and cooperation, which we have set up as the standards of our own thought and action, then we must resolutely turn our backs upon it, shut our minds out to it, and deliberately fill our minds with a realization of the Christ, the I am presence, and let the radiance of the Christ light so fill our consciousness that there is no room for lesser thoughts. Then its radioactive power will protect us from all impure, negative, critical, and unworthy thoughts, and will neutralize and disintegrate them without our having to concentrate upon or fight them if perchance they have entered our minds. In other words, we must still the tumult of the rational mind and listen to the still small voice of the higher, superconscious, or spiritual mind, and allow it to be mighty, victorious, and harmonizing and perfecting intelligence which governs our world of consciousness and reaction. Worship. Most important of all, we must establish ideals of worship and devotion to God, the great and loving source of all our life, consciousness, and supply. For without worship, love, and devotion, no amount of intellectual development can take us into the spiritual world, but only into the higher realms of the mental world. It is through the heart qualities and not those of the head that we contact the divine. Once we understand this law and sincerely desire to draw closer to the loving Christ and let him fill our lives with joy and blessings and guidance, we must open our hearts to him in prayer, worship, and ardent devotion. Meditation. For this purpose, we must have defined periods of meditation while we relax all tension of the body and mind, put aside all thoughts of the outer world that may have occupied our minds, and still all its activities while we listen to the guidance of the still small voice in our hearts, which will reveal the ideals for which we should strive. For if we ask sincerely and devotedly for that guidance, we will be given the inner conviction and assurance of that which is best for us when ready. If it is enlightenment and instruction that is needed in some and often remarkable way, we will be brought into touch with the avenue of teaching, which is best adapted to our stage of unfoldment. Those who find in the truth expounded by these teachings the most spiritual and inspiring ideals, as most comforting, satisfying, and practical solutions of life's problems, should give them such serious, sorry guys, I thought my volume was off, study that they become part of their mental and spiritual life, a firm foundation of ideals upon which they can stand secure and firm. Then they cannot be turned aside by popular, but often misleading fads of the day. Thus will the teachings develop a united body of advanced thinkers and devoted disciples of all seeking to demonstrate and spread the same high ideals to all they contact. Thus they will become a bulwark of safety station for humanity in the midst of the astral mirages and temptations in the revolutionary conditions of outer life, while through humanity is passing and among the swirling and conflicting currents of mere human opinion as to what the truth, what is cosmic philosophy, and what is true spiritual teaching, and what is ideal. Christ ideal. Let us therefore determine first to define our ideals of life, of conduct, of thought, word, and deed, and then to make them so real, so definite and concrete by repeatedly concentrating upon them that we will react to them instinctively before we have time to think. For there is no standard short of Christ's ideal that is worthy of our attention and attainment. Our ideals. Just what is our ideal of life? Is it the uncertain accumulation of this world's good, whose loss leaves us barren and desolate, and which we have to leave behind us when we leave this world? Or it is the accumulation of spiritual treasures, which we do take with us? Is it the attainment of fleeting power and position in this world of temporary sojourn, or is it the attainment of powers which determine our position for all time in our real home or heavenly world? Does it include a perfect body, an illumined mind and lofty soul, only to satisfy pride of personality, or to obtain the Christ ideal, which will be expressed so radiantly as to inspire others to strive to obtain and manifest that ideal? I'm going to leave this here, guys. The next time is the woman's age. Shall be very interesting. But I hope you guys enjoyed this 2 chapters, which were really eye-opening and interesting, because we really do have to look not just on the outside, but in the inside of yourself. What are your ideals? What do you got to get rid of? What baggage, what clothing, what things within you, even, like Zen flowness, like what is it in your environment that is no longer serving you, that you don't use, is just sitting there? Can you donate to somebody? Or what can you repurpose it as? Instead of buying something new and it's just sitting there and you're not using it, you don't like it, maybe be creative, use your creative forces to reimagine something. We're in an age, guys, that things are really expensive. Things are really hard to acquire depending on what it is. And if you use your creativeness, you got a world's worth of amazement that can be given in front of you. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Please hit that like. Please share. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I thank everybody for contributing and helping me and becoming a part of this amazing movement. It's just passing along knowledge and books that I find that I really like. And there's some books that I read that I really don't like. But I think the information within all of them will steer us closer to understanding the world, reality, this matrix. It's holographic, it's ontological, mathematical. We all combined read and hold on to one concept without looking at the many concepts. And that's why the body of work that I have, that I'm able to read without getting yanked, is very priceless. We need to share and we need to go and dive deep. And that's why I encourage everybody to read or buy the books yourselves if you have that kind of time. I made this channel at the first place because a lot of people could not find the time to read a 2,000-page book, but I'm doing it. We're already on paper 51, upcoming your Rancher book, and a Wasp Bay. I've been jumping around, but I have so many videos already. It's important to get the gist of all of it, not to hold on to that one book as your end all be all, and that's all you're going to believe in. Because I bet you if you read the other books, there's some similar things in there, and there are concepts that you might go, oh. But if you don't give yourself a try and you don't open up your mind and expand, you're going to be stuck. Let's not get stuck. We don't want that. So, sending each and every one of you light, love, shielding, and protection. Please be safe, be seen. The weekend is here again. I don't know when what time is. Please make sure you're safe and seen, and I'll see you guys on the next one.